Hey guys, this is Fredcheck Dave playing some Code Vein. In this video I'm just going to explain the various builds I used when I played this, which was like a month ago.
Don't be hasty.
And let's start with
I'm going in.
Queen's Throat. There you go. 22,000 damage, seems balanced. So this is the highest burst damage in the game and spellcasting build. And the cool thing with this game is you don't really have to respec stat-wise. There's no item or anything because you just have one level. But you can get a bunch of upgrades for different trees by leveling skills and different things like that. Grinding the abilities so that they unlock for different trees. And then you could stack that with the innate stat of whatever blood code you're using. So Queen's Throat is the highest spellcasting damage. The Queen blood code is more balanced if you just want health and like survivability, but if you just want a huge ass number, then this is the build you use. It's a good build. Powerful, but just due to the nature of how this game works, you're going to have to run around backstabbing guys over and over until you have 60 bullets, or whatever they're called. Blood Ichor, the number in the lower right. And then you can have more spellcasts, so even on New Game Plus. It takes like 4 spellcasts to kill one of the bosses that has more health. On New Game Plus. On New Game I'm pretty sure you can like 2-shot everything. Okay, so there you go. That's spellcasting build in a nutshell. I've also got this spell, and there's 2 of these spells in the game. If there was 3, you could just make a build that was sword. This is like Greater Magic Sword from Dark Souls 2. Same idea. Faster, I guess. And you could stack those, so you can do one and then immediately the other one, if you want to. And that does good damage. And is fast. And hits multiple enemies. Dusk Edge is the other one that I have. And despite the third one looking like it is also this attack, it's a different one. But he's gonna die in one. But if he didn't die in one, then that's how you would do that. And it cools down really, really quickly. So that's another way to approach this build. And lastly, I think the gun build, like a spellcasting build that uses a gun, is probably better. The downside to Queen's Throat is you can't really use any weapons. So, here you go. Everything's crossed out except for Eva's weapon. So this is Eva's blood code, naturally. And I believe the gun barrage thing also gets buffed, so if that one-shots this guy, then that'll be an indication of that. I think one of my spells is from the Tower of Trials, but I'm not sure. Oh, it does not gain from it. And you can see that the icon on the lower right is still draining. Unlike the physical attack buff that just lasts forever, the spellcasting one, which is specific to Eva's blood code, you can't put it on a different tree, is the limited time buff. I guess in turn you do way more damage. But it's a powerful build. Is this gift prowess? Oh, this is the casting speed one. Right, Eva is your best partner because she can also cast gift prowess. And hers stacks with yours, so you get really, really fast movement speed. You can see the 2 blue icons on Eva's thing. That's my buff and her buff. So now my spellcasting speed is like 3 times as fast. So like Purging Thorn is a very, very slow spell. This is the most powerful spell. It's the plot spell that the Queen uses. But nothing's gonna have enough health to actually show off how much damage it does. So you just have to take my word for it, I suppose. But if we do a normal cast of the spell...
Just watch.
Oh, she did the buff, so it's gonna be hard to demonstrate now. Well, let's do the fast cast. So this is the fast version. And you can cast this spell, that was one of those things, so that did like 24,000 damage. If everything hit and he didn't just die to one of them. So that does even more than the big ass burst that did 21,000 right at the start. Very nice. But if you do, this is without a casting speed buff. It's much slower, you can see. But you can cast the Queen's Thorn and then cast this spell while the Crystal Homing Soul Mass is shooting. And there's 4 versions of the big ice spell. There's a lightning one, there's a blood one, and a fire one. And they all do the same thing. They don't hit multiple enemies though. Doesn't really make that much sense. But there you go. Alright, and I guess I'll explain the Queen's build, or just Queen Blood Code build, which is similar. But this build has good stats, so you can use, I think these are all the same stats, which are all willpower buffs, so spell damage buffs. But now we have, you can see pretty balanced stats versus Queen's Throat is just nothing but mind and willpower. So I have this sword I use because it's slightly less generic than the Zweihander. And virtually identical damage-wise. And then this sword, I believe has the longest range. And I use Devour because it gives back... Now this seems paradoxical, but the two-handed swords give you the most Ichor, so therefore they're the best for spellcasting. Because you regenerate Ichor faster. Unless you just want to backstab everything. But backstabbing everything is very slow. So that's mostly just to build up more max Ichor. So that's why you use Devour, and Fortification is the only other modification that's particularly useful for the vast majority of builds. Maybe not for everything. Oh, this build has the Blood Absorb thing, so if I waste some mana here, and then run up and use this R2 triangle over here, that gave me... what, 7 blood Ichor back? And unfortunately Eva just murdered the guy, so I couldn't demonstrate how much. But usually you get like 2.5 to 3 blood Ichor pips per swing with a two-handed sword. And then with Eva's weapon, for example, you would get, I don't know, 1/4 of 1. And your weapon doesn't stagger them on top of that. So it's very bad to use other weapons if you're trying to regenerate Ichor. This is a balanced build that can approach the game in a normal bashing people with two-handed sword fashion while also casting spells. This spell down here is from the new thing. Temporarily increases fortitude and vitality. You get 3 new spells from doing the Tower Trials. That's one of them. And it's actually kind of hard to buff your survivability, so that's good. It also lasts for quite a while. And it's not very expensive, but it's good because it's basically just like a health buff, effectively. Which is handy. Okay, so that's that build. So, all willpower stat buffs. This one also has the ice spell. I think enemies in this area are weak to ice, so it's a 21,000 damage at the start. That's because they're weak to ice. Usually it would only do like 16,000. Maybe a little bit more than that. But with this build, since I don't have the spell casting buff, it will only do like 10,000, maybe a little bit more than that. I'm not sure. Alright, and on to the generic build that I use to beat the game, more or less. So, there's only one armor that's better than some of the default armors in the entire game, and it's this defender stuff. So this is the only heavy armor in the whole game, pretty much. And you don't get it until like the penultimate area, so you're kind of stuck with... I mean, the rest of the armor is fine, but it doesn't do anything special. It's just kind of whatever. So you're stuck with this kind of armor for a long, long time. But this, I apparently do not have a damage buff, but you can use 2 different damage buff abilities if you want. They look like a fist, and there's 2 of them that both look like this, if I can find it. One moment. Oh, here's one, and here's the other one. They do the same thing. This one costs slightly more and has a longer cooldown. But they both basically double the damage of your next attack, and then they stack with each other, so... And it only lasts for 1 hit. So you want the highest single damage hit if your attack does more than 1 hit. But this basically triples how much damage an attack will do, so it'll do like 12,000 or something like that. Not 21,000, but a lot nonetheless, and much more replenishable. Those abilities are very useful in depths, since there's fewer enemies and more simple environments. But in general, I tend to just watch. Okay, so that's one of the general concepts. I tend to just do like an attack buff and not the single hit buffs. So you can cancel out of this swing, which is by far the best attack in the game, I think, for any weapon. That's just a normal attack. So you're dashing, running 1, I guess, to use a Tekken term. I think it also works out of sprint, but rolls are slower than sprinting, and you don't have to run very far to activate it. It's like 1 millisecond of sprinting will do it. And then when you hit something, you can cancel it into the twirly attack I just did, or one of the other ones if you feel like it. The other good attack you get from the bad ending is this, and this hits 3 times and has extremely long range, but it only hits 3 times if you're standing at a very specific location relative to the boss. The boss, or regular enemy, I suppose. So the swirly attack, which you get from the first 2-handed attack build, is actually more useful on average, and this, which you get from another very early blood code, is pretty good as well. You kind of just use them when they're on cooldown while you're attacking. And that's good enough to beat every boss in New Game Plus, except for the Virgin Reborn, I think is the name of the boss, which has really broken scaling. But if you did it correctly, I guess you don't even have to fight him. You could just skip that boss, because it's optional if you just do the bad ending. There you go. So, oh, I guess I can talk about a theoretical dexterity build. I use this a little bit. This is Mia's blood code, and then this gun, which may or may not be upgraded. But as I was talking about before, it's not upgraded. So this is going to do less damage, probably, than the previous one. This is more efficient as far as how much mana you use, but your damage output is just pathetic compared to... So that would probably do like 2200 damage or so if I had this set up correctly. I also don't have the right armor on. I use this sometimes just because it looks better with this outfit relative to the other one. And they kind of do the same thing. This is just a little bit better. This should give me fast. Yeah, and it's also less heavy. There you go. So there are reasons to use this aside from aesthetics. But if you were going to do a build like this, it's going to be like a hybrid spell dexterity build, something like that. And this isn't like a modern updated version of it. Oh, I think focused gift speed plus Eva's buff makes this attack shoot really, really fast. which is nice, but that's really the only ability that this split code has going for it. You can import other abilities, but they work better with Queen's Throat, in my opinion. But you could have maximum dex or dex and bayonet, and then maybe this build works. Any build can beat New Game, but I think New Game Plus, it narrows down your options quite a bit as far as what's going to be viable. You could still win with crappier builds, but you're not going to be that lucky. Or fortunate, for the most part. I've done a lot of co-op for this game because I have the Platinum, and that's part of the... Platinum is doing like 133 co-op sessions, roughly. And some people do use one-handed builds. I think the most common build is two-hander, and then Dex or spellcasting are second most common. Two-hander is like probably 30% of players. So if this were Dark Souls, in Dark Souls there's like one build that 75% of people use because they're all brainless morons. But in Code Vein, pretty good variety of build usage. Of course, the ability to respec on the fly, you don't even have to touch a bonfire to change what you're doing, is a huge advantage, so you can now basically mess around with all sorts of stuff whenever you feel like it. That doesn't mean people will, but they could. Oh yeah, I do have this as well, Modest Offering. This is just a better revive, and you also get this from the Tower of Trials. It's a shorter cooldown, it uses less health, and costs less Acre. So it's just straight up better than the regular one. Though if your ally, your NPC ally used this, it wouldn't be bad. But if, like regular ally uses it, it's not too bad. Not too bad, it keeps you alive, and it keeps them alive better. But Io, the reason why I think Io is the best partner is because her heals you for way more than all the other partners. And I think her AI, well, the melee AI in general is smarter than the ranged AI, so her AI is better in addition to being a spellcaster. But Eva's gift is much, much better as a buff. And I guess Jax is the best if you want to do RTSR, this ability. It does give you a huge attack buff, but you can't heal while you're using it. So this works pretty well in normal, because you just kill things too fast for it to matter. But on New Game Plus they have, I don't know, 2.5 times as much health. Which is generally not enough. Or this isn't going to last for long enough to work. Unless you're so good at the game where it wouldn't matter whether you use this in the first place, because you're just going to win every fight anyway. Except for the Virgin Reborn, of course. The New Game Plus version. The New Game version, no problem. Alright, so that was this video, and I have one more to record that's just co-op highlights, and I'll probably incorporate some older footage in there as well. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.